Thank you, President Officer, and many thanks to those members who have supported this motion and allowed me to bring this important issue to the Chamber, and of course those members who stayed behind to listen. Frankly, it's a disgrace that we even have to debate this, but debate it we must, because this Chamber, this institution, this Parliament of ours is under attack. And sadly, there are those within these walls who are complicit in that attack, and some explicitly, others by their silence or even their absence. There is a phrase that's often trotted out about the Scottish Parliament which predates the existence of the Parliament, and it was part of the argument made during the referendum that brought it into being. And that is that devolution and the Scottish Parliament are the settled will of the Scottish people. Now that, for me, is a bit thus far and no further. Like Parnell, I'm more inclined to insist that no man has a right to fix the boundary of the march of a nation. And indeed, all the parties in this chamber signed up to the Smith Commission that said nothing should prevent this Parliament moving on to become independent if that's what the people of Scotland voted for. There was certainly a very broad consensus in 1999 that there were a wide range of issues best dealt with here in Scotland's Parliament rather than down the road in Westminster. And I don't see any sign of a shrinking back from that view amongst the people of Scotland. On the contrary, support for extending the powers of the Scottish Parliament have grown substantially, and support for independence is regularly the majority option in frequent opinion polls, in fact, as recently as last week. What I also see, though, are hardline unionists, those who were not part of that 1999 consensus and have resented the very existence of this place ever since. Emboldened perhaps by their experience with Brexit, and fuelled by dewy-eyed reminiscences of an empire on which the sun never set and a golden age that never existed, trying to claw back powers to Westminster and to Whitehall. The long list of legislation detailed in the motion shows that this is not a one-off issue. They are working to a template and with scant regard to democracy. To that list, we could easily add the blocking of an independence referendum and the refusal to recognise the overwhelming opposition in Scotland to Brexit and being dragged out of the European Union. And we also see this phenomenon of the craven Conservatives who will never attack anything that might represent the interests of the people of Scotland if it conflicts with what the government in London is doing. And to give you an example, the Liz Truss fiasco that cost Scotland perhaps around £6 billion, not a word of criticism from the Conservatives. And let's be clear, this is not just the bolshy jock grievance mongers, as people like Jacob Rees-Mogg might describe us. For example, former Labour First Minister Henry McLeish, who I think would be appalled at the absences on the Labour benches tonight. Henry McLeish has branded Tory moves to curtail Scottish ministerial engagement abroad as an attack on devolution, and he's highlighted the contempt, the disrespect and the political control and coercion of the UK government. He highlighted the Scottish Government's absolute democratic right to be pursuing international engagement and warned that this Tory Government does not recognise the spirit of devolution. And looking at the UK Government's intention to use a Section 35 order for the first time to stop the Scottish Parliament from implementing a piece of devolved legislation, one with cross-party support, majority support from MSPs of all parties, the current Labour First Minister of Wales, Mark Drakeford, again who is also more concerned about devolution than some people in this chamber, said that the moves to block the law sets, in his words, a very dangerous precedent, and that could be a very slippery slope indeed. And when the unelected Tory peer Lord Frost, who served as Boris Johnson's failed Brexit negotiator, argued that no more powers should be given to the Scottish Parliament and that some powers should be snatched back by Westminster, there were those from the Tory benches, such as Murdo Fraser, Stephen Kerr and Donald Cameron, who is here tonight, who rightly condemned the column and sought to distance themselves from the proposals. And I did promise Donald Cameron would mention the fact that his relative, Michael Ingram, was one of those people that spoke up in the House of Commons against the clause that allows Section 35. Where is that strain of Tory these days? And yet they avidly support now Westminster's Section 35 veto, and they frequently call on their Westminster bosses to ignore the democratic will of the Scottish Parliament. Just this weekend it emerged that the UK Government are blocking the deposit return scheme, as approved by this Parliament, because glass is contained in the scheme. The Welsh Government have also included glass in their scheme, but they will no doubt be told no as well. And the odd thing, of course, as we know, is that the Tories have supported the inclusion of glass, and I'm looking or I would be looking at Maurice Golden if he was here, who tweeted as long ago as 2019 that Scotland's new deposit return scheme should include glass. It's just common sense. So this can only be a macho exercise in flexing constitutional muscle on the part of Westminster. Britain is financially broke and it's constitutionally broken. But even with the limited powers of devolution, this Parliament has been able to make a difference. We've been building a fairer Scotland with the Scottish Child Payment, the most ambitious anti-poverty measure anywhere in the UK, increased by 150% in 2022. We've been creating a healthier Scotland with record high staff levels in our NHS, over 28,800 more under the SNP. We are forging forward with a greener Scotland. Our climate targets are among the most ambitious in the world, a 75% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2045. We're supporting a smarter Scotland, for example, £1 billion for the Scottish Attainment Challenge to support our most disadvantaged children and young people. And we're promoting a wealthier Scotland with a progressive income tax system, ensuring the majority, 52% of Scottish taxpayers, pay less than elsewhere in the UK, while delivering extra support for our public services. And this is only scratching the surface of the benefits that devolved government, and in particular, in my view, the SNP's policies have brought to Scotland. I could go on and list many more, or the ways in which Scotland is outperforming the rest of the UK. Teachers' pay, police officers' pay, crime reduction, for example. But I don't have time to list all the benefits. The list is long and impressive, but perhaps other members, when they speak, will pick up that baton. The Scottish Parliament, the Scottish Government and the Scottish people need more powers, not fewer powers. The attacks by the Tories on devolution and any failure of Labour and Lib Dems, no Lib Dems at all here tonight, to oppose them, will not be unnoticed, forgiven or forgotten by the people of Scotland. The former Tory MP and Minister Enoch Powell, not someone I've ever quoted with relish, said that power devolved is power retained. Now, this UK Government want to go further and see Westminster's power regained. They want to take back control. Well, we won't let them do that. And I would end with a call to members from across the chamber, at least those that are here tonight, and certainly all those who believed in devolution from the start and still do, to unite and repatriate the power that's been stolen from this Parliament and the people of Scotland. Thank you, Presiding Officer.